All right. So I'm gonna rewatch this video. I'm in a better headspace now. But first, before we do that, let's get to a couple of other allegations here, and let's make a couple of like small points, okay? Um, let's first talk about like the age of consent stuff here, okay? The accepted age of consent, generally speaking, is like a 4-year age gap. I think it's reasonable to say that, like, I would think that most people aren't really comfortable with young people sleeping with each other until they're like at least 16. I think a 2-year age gap is perfectly normal. 3 years really isn't that bad. 4 is kind of cringy, and I think socially should be shifted. But like a 17-year-old and a 20-year-old talking is really, it's not news. It's pretty typical normal behavior. People do it in high school, which is a little gross. I mean, a 15-year-old, 18-year-old. We're talking about a 17-year-old. In a lot of states, 17 is the age of consent. New York, for instance, is one of those states. If you think it's too low, that is a social thing that we should be having a conversation about. But I think it's something that you guys should keep in mind for context, that a lot of people, when we talk about these situations, and I bring up like, hey, the 4-year age gap is generally acceptable. They go, well, it's gross. And I agree. But like, keep this in mind. We need to make sure, right? Due process is a thing. Innocent until proven guilty. Okay. Which means that you are going to assume that you're going to make the assumption that somebody is like acting out of like good faith. So we would assume that if the law was that you couldn't interact with anybody at a 4-year age gap, that Carson wouldn't have interacted with these people. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right? So like, the fact that it's illegal is a factor. We would assume people wouldn't do something illegal if it was illegal. Of course, people do that, but we wouldn't instantly assume everybody's guilty just on the foundation that some people could be guilty. I bring that up for context. Now, this person, he was 20, they were 17. It's not that big of a deal. He just turned 20. He was 19. Apparently, she's turning 18 in like a month, based on this timeline. But like, it's not that big of a deal. Okay, like, it's really not. Everyone who's complaining about it are online social justice warriors that are usually young kids that don't understand a goddamn thing. Most realistic humans, people who live in the real world, don't give a singular fuck about this thing. Okay, to the point about there being an abuse of power. There needs to be an active abuse of power that was recognizable in any of the messages. We read all of them. There was nothing. We're going to read these ones. I already know there's nothing. I've already read them. Okay. Hold on. Relax with the CP shit. I'm going to go into it. But unless he leveraged his account, there's no to get something. There's nothing there. And I want to explain to you like examples of leveraging his account. If Carson said, "I'm a big creator. I want to like show me your boobies and I'll give you something," that's an abuse of power. If Carson said, "I'm a big creator. If you don't do something for me, I'll ruin you," that's an abuse of power. Carson interacting with somebody that's a fan of his is not an abuse of power on like any inherent basis. If by that logic, every single interaction between like any musician that engages with their groupies is predatory. There are groupies for people that want to engage with people. Is there a power dynamic? Sure. But these are individuals, and since the age isn't a problem, these are individuals that have the ability to make their own decisions. At worst, this girl not interacting with Carson means that she doesn't get to interact sexually with Carson. There's nothing there. Like, oh, maybe he won't like me as much. Who cares? If you are so obsessed with somebody to the point where you are that hooked on them and you'll shatter if they don't date you, that's a mental condition. Outside of people with literal mental disorders, a rational human being can make a rational decision not to engage with somebody. You liking them more is super irrelevant to me, okay? Because by the logic of, hey, I like that person a lot, I want them to date me, so I'll do anything they want me to do. You can make that assumption when it comes to crushes in middle school, or liking somebody on like a sports team that you're on the same team with. You could be in like middle school and be like, oh, I'm a nerd and I really like this popular girl. She doesn't even know who I am. I'd do anything to be with her. Do you think that nerd is a victim if the popular girl dates him? No, you don't. All right. The logic isn't applied. Now, there are people who want to contest the age of consent specifically on the point of like the atmosphere they're in, saying, well, he's 19 and they're 17, and one instance he's 20, whatever, and like they're 17, so they're still in high school. So comparatively, he's 20, he's in a different whole other social setting, so he has a level of maturity over them. Okay, would you apply that same logic to somebody who's 24 years old and still in college, and a 27-year-old who's working a real job? You probably wouldn't. I understand that there are a lot of small nuanced factors here, but like, we make these general statements because there's no reason to sit here and hyper focus on all these nuanced factors. All right. By the logic of the atmosphere, that means if an 18-year-old college dropout has been working in the workforce for 2 years, it's inherently abusive for them to date an 18-year-old that's still in high school. Do you understand? We have an age of consent for a reason. We have Romeo and Juliet laws for a reason. All right, that's what we need to. That's what we're talking about here. It's very simple. Okay. Now, with this whole thing, this is when they started talking. He was 20, she was 17. Really don't see an issue there. So far, we have two people, the only two people that have ever come forward, the only two people that have ever been claimed, and it's consistent with Carson's apology for the two people he talked to that were 17, that even in the original DMs showed the age gap that he keeps trying to bring up. So she deleted her messages, but showed his. This is all it says. Hey, you there? I want to drop the sexual stuff entirely. It's been making me feel sick thinking about it. I feel wrong for having done it, and I feel bad that I led you on. I enjoyed talking to you and all, but it's just too much for me. I feel really guilty. I'm so sorry. I've also realized I have a crush on my friend Sarah, and I don't want to lead you on in any way. Tomorrow, I'm starting my trip to California, and I think I need to move on. I feel like I think I need to just move on. I'm very stressed, and talking to you has been adding extra stress, and I'm very scared, and I feel bad about wanting to unadd you. It's just all a lot of right now, and I'm not sure that talking to you is a good decision. Okay, listen. It's perfectly fine. He's saying he doesn't want to talk to this girl anymore because he's moving on. To be honest with you, most men wouldn't give a fuck. They would just unadd her and never talk to her again. I don't know. Carson is like a weirdly nice guy to a point where I would kind of call him like a beta. Whatever. That's just my toxic masculinity. Whatever. But this is not problematic at all. Hey, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I'm moving on in my life. He gave her fucking, what is it called? Your peace, closure is the word that you're looking for. Now, a lot of people are constantly referencing, well, Carson is apologizing. Carson is this, and that's why he must be guilty. Okay, and that is a reason that you guys think he's guilty is because Carson, again, is a beta who apologizes for things that he doesn't do wrong. Okay, so here's the thing. Right, Carson, we've already established based on the evidence that that's been given to us from the start, Carson has done nothing wrong in any capacity. Yeah, Carson hadn't done wrong in any capacity. The age gaps were perfectly fine, perfectly legal, socially and legally. The only people who have a fucking problem with it are people online. Nobody in the real world gives a fuck about this type of bullshit. Okay? So what did he do wrong? Nothing. Why is he apologizing? Well, he seems to think that 17 and 19 is weird, or he seems to think that people are not going to like it because of his cancel culture. He's getting canceled for nothing, and he really does seem to have some kind of paranoia. Seems to have some kind of weird mental health issue, but it doesn't make it wrong. Because you think something is wrong doesn't mean it's wrong. I'm going to give you an instance where somebody who's not wrong thinks that they're wrong, okay? If we look at sexual assault survivors, individuals who are sexually assaulted, okay, there is a narrative that we are slowly debunking, and it needs to be debunked, okay? Please stop with the child pornography bullshit. I'm going to get to it. Can you just shut the fuck up, okay? When it comes to these situations, right, now I lost my fucking train of thought, of sexual assault, all right, there's a lot of victim blaming for the woman, of like, what were you wearing? Why were you there? Were you with any friends, right? Just because the narrative is, oh, you're guilty, just because that girl might think she's guilty doesn't make her guilty. You thinking you're guilty doesn't mean that you're guilty. Okay, it's a thing. So him apologizing is irrelevant. It doesn't mean that he did it. You could go confess to a murder. It doesn't make it a murder. That's just reality of the situation. If you step out of an elevator and it scares somebody into a heart attack, it doesn't mean you killed them. You'll feel guilty. It doesn't make you wrong. Okay? Now, I'm going to get to the CP stuff, because you guys are going fucking ballistic on the CP stuff. Okay, so we've established that it's perfectly reasonable for him to be talking to a 17-year-old girl when he's 19 or even 20, right? Okay, by that logic, what we're saying is it is perfectly reasonable, and it absolutely is if they engaged sexually. So let me ask you a question. What is more intense, sending somebody pictures or actually sleeping with them? Now, anybody with half a brain would say sleeping is higher on the tier list of interactions with somebody, which means if it's perfectly legal to sleep with somebody, that means that morally speaking, if it's legal and moral for sleep with somebody, it's still moral to send pictures to somebody. The illegality of the situation is kind of irrelevant. Okay? We're going to equate that to something else. All right? In this scenario, right? Here's engaging, intimate engagement, perfectly fine. Sending pictures, technically illegal. Alcohol, perfectly fine. Marijuana, illegal. Okay? We set the bar at alcohol and sleeping together, and yet we make it illegal to do things that are on lower statuses of that thing. Most people would agree that marijuana should be legalized. You would apply the same social norms to sending pictures within a reasonable, rational age link. Okay? There you go. Is it illegal? Sure. Is it immoral? No. I doubt any of you would report your friend for smoking marijuana. Okay? The illegality of it is the law. I didn't say the law was irrelevant. Please listen or don't talk. I didn't say it was irrelevant. It's relevant, but it's not damning, and it doesn't equate him to a predator. Okay? We have poor internet laws to the point where Amazon is now a fucking monopoly because our Congress can't keep up. So we haven't crafted any nuanced laws. The worst thing that you could say is, hey, it should be illegal because he could distribute it to somebody. So now you're making an assumption with no actual evidence that he would distribute it to somebody just because he got those pictures. Socially, what he's saying, what he did, isn't wrong. Now, would I say he shouldn't get, charged? I don't actually care if he gets charged. If he gets charged for that, that's fine. But she's also going to get charged for it because it's illegal to distribute or receive it. You understand? That's what we're looking at, okay? Maybe he should get arrested for it. I honestly wouldn't have a problem with it. I wouldn't have a problem with it. I wouldn't sit here and be like, no, he shouldn't. Right? But we're talking about the label predator. Predator is a very big label, okay? Gotta keep that in mind. Okay, let's move on to the next piece, okay? This whole thing. Now, I don't even know if this is true. Call Me Carson has 107 hours recorded on a game that takes 40 minutes to beat. Okay. Hold on. Let's assume that this isn't photoshopped, okay? Okay. What does this indicate to somebody? Well, depending on the situation, it'll indicate many things. If somebody was trying to push the narrative that he liked engaging with young girls, you would go, oh, this is proof. But since every claim that's been made has been very easily debunked, then the only thing that left to assume, if we were, acting in good faith, would be the same thing you would assume if a 14-year-old kid, which a lot of young kids do, go into Call of Duty lobbies saying the N-word. You guys think it's funny. If this is real, which I cannot even confirm, I don't even know how to go to Carson's fucking Steam profile, but even if this is true, even if this is real, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's most likely a joke. Because the game is weird. It's about a 14-year-old girl who gets assaulted, and it's a text-based game. And then you make decisions. Who gives a shit? And what link does he apply? You guys know I'm fucking stupid. What did he say? What did he say about it? Okay, could say the same thing. I don't know anything about those situations. I don't know how to check. What do I look at? This? Do I click on this? What do I look at here? I don't know what I'm looking at. He left when he went to Australia. Okay. He has no achievements in that game. Okay, so he doesn't even have achievements in the game, which means he literally AFK'd. What am I scrolling up to? There's nothing here. I can't see anything. Okay. It's not him. Is it him? Who's Carson? I would assume their name is Carson. Right? I don't... This is him? Is this him? No. Who the fuck? I don't even know what the hell you guys are talking about. Okay? It's the third tweet under the original video. This one here? Okay, oh, I'm talking about his... You said he replied. Yeah, this doesn't matter to me. Anyway, you get my point. It's most likely a joke. And apparently he has no achievements, which means he didn't even play it. I see what you're saying. Relax. Okay? So, like, there's nothing here. There's literally nothing here. There's literally nothing. It's nobody in their right... Yeah, it's a joke. You went AFK. Nobody in their right mind would assume that it wasn't a joke. I heard he said some stuff in the Discord server before it was deleted. Like okay, so we need to so far, okay, with all these hey, maybe something happened claims, which is kind of what you just did. So far, we started that he's a groomer. That's debunked because of the age. Then we went on to power dynamics. That's debunked because it's completely irrational. Then we move on to the illegality of the pictures. It's illegal, but it's been debunked from the perspective of like defending that he's a groomer because it's like it's really not that big of a deal, right? So, by the way, if you're going to go with the illegality of sending pictures, she also should get like a similar punishment because it's illegal for you to send them or receive them, right? You realize that every single time we debunk a narrative, we come back to something that, well, something might have happened. Well, could you imagine that, like, somebody made a claim about you unsubstantiated, and they're like, well, you could have. There's no way to prove that you didn't do this thing, right? The reason that we don't you're not guilty till proven innocent is because it's hard to defend conspiracy narratives. If you make up a claim with no basis to it, it's impossible to prove it incorrect because there's nothing in it in the first place. That's the whole narrative of a conspiracy is it's impossible to debunk because there's no evidence in the first place. And that's what we're doing. We're just shifting to different things, right? So let's get to this video from I forgot his name. I don't understand. I forget names. All right, people keep telling me watch it. I've watched it twice. There's nothing here. I'm gonna watch it again on stream. Okay. I know a lot of you guys are engaged. Jschlatt, yeah, are engaging in like a confirmation bias where you hear something and you want to believe it's true, so you just take it on face value. But somebody speaking negatively about Carson doesn't mean that it's rational, it's justifiable that they spoke negatively about Carson. It's really that simple. Okay, this guy might dislike Carson because he felt like he lied to him for some reason, but there's no justification for anything that happened. All right, so let's watch.
Uploading this to the weekly slap because I hate twitlongers and I hate notepad screenshots, and this is really the only serious outlet I've ever had to talk about stuff, so it felt kind of appropriate to put it here. Around late February, early March, Carson told the Lunch Club guys, as well as a bunch of close friends of his at the time, that he had been sexting his fans. He explained that he had exchanged photos with the 17-year-old while he was 19 and that he was done with it. He hadn't done it in months.
Let's stop right here. Really quick. We've already talked about it. Nothing wrong with what he actually did based on everything that we already talked about.
He was ashamed of what he had done. And
him being ashamed, we've already established, doesn't really matter, because just because you think you might be guilty in something doesn't mean that you are guilty in something. In fact, I'm going to bring up another thing. Would you say that a religious homosexual is actually guilty, like, of a sin? I know it's a weird thing, right? Just because somebody thinks that they're guilty of something, just because somebody thinks that homosexuality is a sin, or just because somebody thinks that because they were sexually assaulted, it was their fault for what they were wearing, doesn't make it true, right? Do you understand what I'm saying?
All that stuff. Some context for you. Early 2020 was when Carson was at the lowest point in his life. He was extremely depressed. Little did we actually know why, but I knew he had been struggling with imposter syndrome when it came to YouTube and social media and that kind of stuff. And that was something I could relate to in a
I'm sorry. That's probably the funniest thing I heard all day. I can't believe Carson incited his fans to storm the Capitol building.
Pretty big way. So I was there for him. You know, I would be in calls with him all the time. talking about anxiety, mental health, what it means to have this job. And
so really quick, this is very important too, because we're establishing like Carson has some weird mental health issues, okay, which all ties in logically together, that Carson has like some kind of an issue where he thinks he's where he's incredibly paranoid. I'm going to kill the dog. Where he's incredibly paranoid over something, even if he didn't do it, right? That's like a real thing, is being incredibly paranoid. He's innocent. What do you mean, is he innocent or not?
How not to let it drive you up the wall, all that kind of stuff. And in that time, I got extremely close to him. I wouldn't call it best friends, but he was up there. And right after Carson had told us the truth, the Kate situation happened. And, regardless of what we felt about the Kate situation, we saw Carson's mental state decline even more.
Now, for context, I don't know anything about the Kate situation. It's generally irrelevant to what's going on right now, even though I believe they were paralleled, like went on at the same time. But it's irrelevant to the morale. Oh my god, the morality of this.
And it was to the point that,
yeah, I hear he got cheated on. I hear that they weren't really dating. It's just like so much that it doesn't even really matter to the context of like what we're really talking about here.
We genuinely thought his life could be in danger. And I felt like I needed to be there for him. And that's why I stuck with him. And that's why people like Josh and Connor stuck with him. In March and April, we'd be in calls with him almost every.
Really quick, when we're done with this segment, I'll re-explain all the points that like that a lot of you guys are just like saying over and over again. I've already talked about them in the beginning of the video, but you came late. If you want to talk about them after, it's fine, but we'll get to them after this, like the illegality of sending pictures.
Every night till the sun came up, trying to help him through what he was going through. And I just want to say, like, I never condoned what he had done. I remember a call with him and Josh where both of us basically said to him, like, dude, if this behavior continues, we're done. Our close.
Now, with the behavior that's continuing, I don't know the depth. I don't know the depth of whatever specific behavior they were talking about. Maybe he was threatening to take his own life. Okay, I don't really know. But that doesn't mean just because they may have been done with it. And I'm going to be very clear. It's nobody's responsibility to have to interact with somebody with mental health problems. So that sounds like the place that he's actually coming from. Is like, listen, we can't really take it mentally anymore. You talking about potentially taking your own life constantly is draining on us, and it's not our responsibility. So we're going to be done if you keep talking about it. That's totally fine. But in regards to what's happening, it doesn't make, just because he was running thin with his patience to deal with Carson has absolutely nothing to do with the morality of what Carson was doing. You understand?
His friend had fucked up, but he was also in a very dangerous place, and we felt like we had to be there for him. And in doing that, we could give him the guidance and the company he needed to help him get out of this depressive state he was in, and help him grow and become a better person. We talked him into seeing a therapist. We helped him form a better relationship with social media, because he'd check his indirects constantly, and he'd have a tab open of every different site that he would just refresh. We talked him out of doing the impulsive shit he told us he was thinking of doing, like deleting all the social media and posting about Kate. And obviously some of those attempts were less successful than others. But so much time spent with the guy, just trying to be good friends for him, and trying to do what we thought was the right thing to do. But a few weeks ago, I started having some conversations with some of Carson's closest friends, including his former roommates. And in my discussions with them, I heard some things that suggested that Carson wasn't improving in the areas that he should have been. And he was showing signs of continuing some of his inappropriate behavior.
Let's just establish that this inappropriate behavior, while it may seem inappropriate to this individual, does not make it societally inappropriate. Where I'm assuming we're specifically talking about him interacting with his fans, which we've already proven is literally irrelevant. So like, it's not immoral. You may not want to interact with him because you feel it's wrong, but that doesn't mean that it is wrong in any real capacity, because there was no abuse dynamic.
And apparently this was happening while I was spending all this time trying to help him. And while he was saying that he was working on himself, and that he was changing, and that he hates the person he used to be. These conversations were really the ones that got me second guessing how genuine Carson had been to me and to others throughout this whole thing. I remember me and Connor were in Austin at the time, and over a long ass dinner, we just kind of put all the pieces together that we often ignored because of how close we were to him and because of how well he had always treated us. You know, there were always stories I'd hear from his roommates about how he treated them, and how he generally just acted that I glossed over, and I shouldn't have.
Again, all this, the subtext here is that he did such a terrible thing. This is the way I would talk about somebody if I had a close friend that was a drug addict and I accidentally or unintentionally overlooked their drug abuse problem. We're talking about a person having a conversation with self-admittedly and proof-wise two people, and we're acting like it's this insane situation. Nobody has even suggested otherwise. Nobody's contesting the number. Nobody reputable. None of the friends are contesting the number. So we're talking about two people. We're having a meltdown, and we're equating talking to two different people as almost to the same degree as a drug addict. This is how I would talk about a drug addict. Okay, this to me heavily expresses like an immense amount of like just weird fragility for these internet individuals. Like people on the internet are incredibly immature. It's like you guys have never stepped outside in like the real world ever. It's actually insane to me. It's fucking crazy. I could never like talk. I mean, it's just crazy just how just sheltered you guys are. Honestly.
Also, seeing the DMs he exchanged with some of the girls that have come forward absolutely fucking disgusted me.
I looked at all of the DMs. Okay. If it disgusted you, I don't think you've ever slept with a woman before. There's no way that you read those DMs were like, they were Carson and like that girl, Sam or Sarah or whatever, flirting with each other and talking about basically the way that like a couple would talk, like wanting to have a romantic relationship with each other. There's nothing disgusting about it. The only weird part was that he's like, we should wait till we're 18, which you don't have to because you're 17 and 19. So it was just them like harping on the 18. And they may have thought it was wrong, but it wasn't wrong. Yes, it's the equivalent to middle school dating. I want you guys to like really understand this. This is a perspective from myself as well as like most of the men in the real world. Okay, do you know how most men in the real world would react to the interaction between Carson and the girl that he talked to? We would have, if he was next to me, we would have laughed at him for being a beta. That was like the most beta cuck shit I've ever seen in my life. It was laughable. It was funny. It was just funny to me. Like how like it was beta shit. Like the way that like men talk to like just like bro, if it was like a Papa Gut, let's say it was Papa Gut's like DMs, which we've seen those before. It would have been like a little more sexually expressive. Now, of course, the consent's is always there, but it wouldn't have been the shit like, oh my God, I missed you so much. You'd be like, hey, you want me to fucking show you my pickle? You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to be, you know what I'm saying? Okay. So if that was disgusting to you, my man, get a real job. Like work with people in the real world.
Today, I thought that all these encounters Carson had were very much, spur of the moment mistakes that he regretted instantly. And that was very much the story that everybody was told. And knowing what we do now, it's simply just not the case.
To that point of like, she just wanted to ruin his reputation. I want to like really actually bring something up. The DMs that the girl proposed were cut-ups to make it look as worse as possible. And when we saw the full ones on Keemstar's Twitter, they were actually not bad at all. That's the funny part. So this person here, Jschlatt, probably isn't even looking at the correct DMs. Okay, actually, let's see. I don't even know if I could find them. But like, it's insane. Like, she cut them up so that they looked as bad as possible, right? That's what she did. She went out of her way to cut them up, make them look as bad as possible. And then when Keemstar posted everything, when you read them all aloud, it's not bad at all. It's actually like humorous how we got to this fucking spot. So I'm assuming he just never read the full DMs from Keemstar.
Something he pursued. Looking back now, almost every step of the way, Carson tried to downplay what had actually happened.
Downplay what? He said he was sexting minors. Listen. You can't say downplay. He literally said, I was sexting minors. That's an upplay, because when you hear the word minor, okay, so when you hear a minor interacted with an adult, everybody in the chat, think about what are the first two ages that come to mind. My first two, 13 and 30. Okay, well, actually 14 and 30, right? Now, maybe that's just me. Now, what's you guys? What do you think? Yeah, 14 and 30. Pretty typical. Adult, minor. However, in this situation, 37-14, 13, okay, 16-40, 14-30, 13 and 30. Okay, in this situation, it was 19 and 17. Do you see how everybody's minds goes to the extreme of what an adult and a child is? Okay, so he upplayed it. He upplayed the interactions, if anything. 69-70, fantastic. Do you understand? So, like, you're not even... Your accounting of the situation isn't even correct, because we saw the screenshots from a while ago. It's just it's crazy that, like, you're not even like your perception of the reality is astounding to me.
I remember a time when he even referred to the last time it had happened as like Q4 2019 instead of giving us an actual date. And dude, I'm shocked. You know, like I can no longer say with any confidence that I believe Carson's behavior has ever stopped. You know, I can't.
Right. Okay, that's fine. Maybe his behavior never stopped, but the behavior isn't bad, so it doesn't matter.
Take his word for it anymore. When I came to this realization a few weeks ago, I cut ties with Carson and started talking to the other guys about how best to go about this. And I got to hand it to Noah and Travis for stepping up and talking about it first.
Oh, you got to hand it to Noah and Travis for stepping up and talking about it first. Okay. So I want to remind you, and this is the point of the video where this individual loses like all respect and credibility, okay? I'm going to show you what he's commending them on. Okay? I'm going to show you what you're commending them on. I'm just going to show you. This way we can like really get it out. This is what you're commending them on right here. Okay? This interaction is commendable to Jschlatt. You ready?
And that was what I was told.
Did he tell you how?
The Bachelor is...
Wow, that really cucked the fuck out of...
back.
All the drama of what I just said is dead. I have to get YouTube fucking whatever. 2 ads. Poggers. God damn it. All right, this is what Jschlatt thought was commendable. This interaction.
Underage girls, and I think that he said that they were fans. And
really, were you ready?
That was what I was told.
Did he tell you how old they were?
At the time, no.
You're commending them for intentionally misrepresenting the situation by using the word minor and not disclosing the age of the girl despite the fact that they knew the age of the girl. You are saying that they should be commended for literally lying. These two people, according to Jschlatt, deserve to be commended for actively withholding information about the situation. You guys can think he's as good of a person as you want. That is some of the most pathetic scum shit I've ever seen. Is 17 not a minor? We just did a thought exercise. If you weren't here for it, I would ask you this question. What ages do you think of when you hear adult and minor? I'm not going to keep going back to this. Okay. So, we already went through it. You weren't here for it. Okay, so they said, hey, adult and minor, which we've already established. People thinking very they think of it in extremes like 30 and 13, when in the reality it's 17 and 19. Okay. Anyway, it's 17 and 19. And then when they were asked the age, hey, did you know the age? They said, we didn't know at the time, but they know now. So you didn't contextualize this situation in any capacity. It's insane. And that's what they're commending them on. Lying. You're commending them for lying, for dragging your friend as much as possible.
I feel for all the victims here, and to know that that more people could have been hurt this year while Carson and I were friends, and while I continued to associate with him, and while I believed that he was on the right path, that fucking kills me, you know? I hope all of them have gotten and continue to get the help they need to get through this, because this is a recurring problem now of content creators who take complete.
My man Crundle, I'm going to be very nice to you because like you're not listening to what I'm saying. Then that clip of 5 seconds that you couldn't really manage to absorb mentally. What happened is we said the word minor, which makes it look as exaggerated as possible, and then when they had the opportunity to actually contextualize the age, they intentionally didn't take it. That's the problem. I don't know how you didn't get that. I was very expressive about that. That if you say the words, but it's still a minor, again, I'm going to ban you from the chat because you're just not listening. Like, if you're here to not listen, why are you in my stream? It's very annoying. It's fine that you guys contest things, but then when I take the time out of like the video to explain it to you and you still say dumb shit, like, what's the point of you being here? You're not trying to actually listen. You're just trying to say something over and over again.
Advantage of and manipulate the people that care about them the most. I don't think Carson's a pedophile, but that's what he did. He used.
Now, there again, I don't think that he's a pedophile, but this is what he did. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what did he do then? If we're going to constantly, like, rampantly throw around the word minor, I don't think he's a pedophile, but what? He's not a pedophile at all. 19 and 17 isn't pedophilic at all. I don't understand.
Used his power to repeatedly take advantage of.
What power did he use? Show how he used it, and how did he take advantage of girls who wanted to engage with him? If the age ranges are fine, their engagement is fine. There's no taking advantage of. Positions of power don't mean that positions of power are abused.
Vulnerable people.
Hey, Carson's like an equitable person. People want to associate themselves with him because he's famous and has money. So that means that anybody who interacts with him is a victim. That's what he's saying.
I don't know what causes this to happen. I don't know what compels content creators to do this, but
do what?
It happens. And it's
by this whole logic chain, I would imagine that Jschlatt's next video is going to be about how morally reprehensible it is for rappers and rock stars and any musician to have sex with any of their fans. There's literally a culture of people sleeping with their fans consensually. Okay, it's groupies. That's what you're saying, that you think that, like, so I want to see your video about how morally reprehensible it is for groupies to sleep together or to sleep with their fucking people that they're fans of. That's what the argument you're making here is.
It's a big fucking problem. And as cliche as it is for me to say this, I really hope Carson gets the help that he very, very clearly needs as well. That's about all I have to say. Thank you all for listening, and be well.
At best, this whole video is just somebody with zero life experience speaking on a topic that he has no education on. Like, there's no depth of thought here. There's so much that can easily be dismantled, which is why this was so easy to dismantle. This is not a good point against Carson. This is, again, at best, a sheltered kid giving his perspective on something from a place with, like, absolutely no life experience. That's the best case scenario. Worst case, this is somebody that's desperately trying not to get involved with Carson and trying to, like, distance himself so that he doesn't get canceled. I tend to be a little less optimistic here, but we'll give him the best case scenario. Say thank you so much, guys, to all my Patreons, and a special shout out to my Papa XL Patreons. Without all you guys, I would just be some fat dude screaming into a microphone. So thank you so much, guys. Mwah, I love you all. I want Papa Gut to pee on my face, but just as a friend. There's nothing weird about that. I want him to pee on my face.